All right, folks, let's begin. So talking about the city is TSA luggage locks, details, flaws, and making the best of a bad lock. My name's Adrian Crenshaw. I run ongeek.com, post a lot of videos, do some research, post my own articles there and so forth. But anymore, mostly con videos I record. I have an interest in infosec education, but I don't know everything. I'm just keeping time on my hands, so I'll get something wrong, let me know. And I'm also a senior information security consultant at TrustedSec. About 3 of us, I think, are presenting at this conference today. And I'm also a co-founder of Decoding. Now, first of all, a few thanks for my research here. Doc Sam was one of the first people that actually sent me pictures when I was, well, I think it was like sometime last month. I was asking questions about TSA locks because I wanted to be able to do a presentation on them because I hadn't seen anybody do one. And Doc Sim posted a picture that I think Lady Merlin had originally found of where someone had taken a photo of the TSA locks. Deviant Olaf also sent that picture to me and has been helping out along the way. Zelatar, he made the first 3D printed TSA keys I know of. Johnny Christmas has helped refine those. Matter of fact, my t-shirt I'm wearing today is something that Johnny Christmas came up with. My TSA keys go to 11. I'll explain more what that means in a bit. And when I don't know how to pronounce his Twitter handle, he's helped out a whole lot as far as also seen me other pictures. And Dossman is my lock mentor downstairs. He's currently searching for some key blanks for me for the project. And actually, am I in frame what you see on the computer? Yes. Okay, cool. Just want to make sure. All right. First of all, why this talk? Well, I'll talk about first why not this talk. Yes, these locks are generally very easy to rake or pick open. I mean, most TSA locks provide so little security. I think some government agency actually classifies them as privacy devices and not full-fledged locks, because locks mean something a little bit more. I mean, this is a simple TSA 002 lock made by Masslock. And I just opened the gate right there by quick braking. It doesn't take much. Oh, another interesting thing with this one, this particular lock has a security mechanism to let you know whether someone's been inside your lock, supposedly. Because if you insert the key, well, first of all, notice I just opened it. There's no red flag on there. If, however, I go in and I use the appropriate key for it, which I'm not supposed to have, it pops up the red flag. But picking it doesn't show that red flag. I think that's an interesting little side feature of that. And these bags are usually easy to open other ways. You could always clip the lock. You could do a ton of things. There's always the zipper attack where you basically take a ballpoint pen, go to the zipper, plunge it in, open it up, and assuming that you can move the zippers, and then it's just the 2 zippers are TSA locked together, you can take it along the bag and reseal the entire thing. Oh, by the way, that's Boris Zvelvik's, I don't know how to pronounce Boris' last name, his kid holding a TSA lock. I thought that would be a cute image for the presentation. Okay, well, a lot of sport people know that these TSA locks are generally crap. A lot of other people have a false sense of security in them. Like some recent events that have happened, there's a lot of people going, wow, all our security for our luggage is gone. It's largely been gone since they've been using these kind of TSA locks. But I don't see much talk about that, so I was going to cover some of that. And also, I just was interested in the technical challenge of making my own TSA key set. Because, you know, it's like, this is something only government agents are supposed to have? I want that. And, like I said, a lot of people made a big deal about the photos being released on the Washington Post. But really, it didn't matter, because as long as you have the actual locks, you can take them apart and figure out what the actual key is supposed to be. And right now I'm looking for a particular specimen that I want to make sure I didn't lose, and I don't see it right now. That is a serious bummer. But I'll find it in a second, I think. Oh, good, I see it. Alright. And this talk also wants to emphasize why security through obscurity fails. And a lot of people have been using the TSA lock incidents that have happened recently as kind of an allegory for what would happen if you had software backdoors or encryption backdoors that the government wants to put into certain systems so they can get in and decrypt messages so that they have the ability to wiretap again or have better ability to wiretap than they might currently have. So this is also kind of a cautionary tale against any kind of security like, let's say, crypto backdoors. I know that's one of the reasons Johnny Christmas is so interested in. Alright, so what are TSA-approved locks? On January 1st, 2003, an order was put in place where TSA has to have the ability to inspect all luggage. A lot of people are putting better locks on their luggage, so the locks should be clipped. This, of course, ended up pissing off a lot of flyers. So some people came up with an idea of, well, let's make certain brands or certain types of locks that TSA has keys for, but that aren't, that TSA has a key for, but the user might be able to get in through other ways or have their own special key for. Like there'll be a change key where the user has their own key, but it won't work on all that lock. And the TSA will have its own key that will work with all of that particular type of lock. And they do this by a number designation, like 007, 005, that tells the agent what particular key to use to try to get into that lock. There's two different standards / brands of these. The first is Travel Sentry, and that was designed by John Vermelin. No idea how to pronounce his name. He was like a baggage consultant for some airlines, and then eventually he started being a consultant for the TSA. And since even back in the 70s, he noted that certain luggage handlers had, like people in charge of like lost luggage and so forth, had a set of keys that they kept, because those set of keys would open up commonly certain luggage types. Because even before the TSA key set, your luggage, what came with key, may not have been a unique key. And so by having a set of, I don't know, like 25 keys from different luggage manufacturers, they can open up a whole lot of them. So that, you know, it's not exactly a completely new concept. People at airports who were in charge of lost luggage and so forth had these keys so they could get in and figure out what's going on. Because you couldn't just leave the luggage there. You had to inspect it and find out what it was. But Travel Sentry in and of itself does not actually make the locks. They license it out, and if they approve and make sure that people are following certain standards so that the master keys will work. Safe Skies was developed around the same time, and both John Vermilli and David Trop were talking to the TSA about doing this. I believe what happened was David Trop saw that John just filed, or it was mentioned that he was going forth with this Travel Sentry idea, and at that point, even though David Trop had been talking about it also with them, he decided to file patents, these two patents, and now there's like lawsuits going back and forth between them, and you know, like, oh, it's really kind of boring text to follow. But anyway, as of right now, these are the two standards for TSA-approved locks, and I don't have any. Well, Safe Skies is an odd thing, and we'll get into that in just a bit. Safe Skies, most of the other ones I have be opened by Travel Sentry 007, but not all. So I'm still trying to figure out the Safe Skies ones. Now, a lot of recent interest has come out about TSA keys. Have you all seen that the pictures that were leaked online? Have you all seen that? Oh yeah, Washington Post posted a picture of someone holding the TSA keys. From the TSA keys, well, there's all sorts of news articles in the past about people making 3D printed copies of keys based only on the pictures. Because there's a certain spec to them. If you know this depth from the picture, this depth, you can look at the bitting, and these keys have a common key cut set. Like there'll be like a 0 cut, a 1 cut, a 2 cut. And these are standard. So from a picture, if you can figure out the right blank, you can reproduce them either with a code cutting key machine or with a little work 3D printing. Myself, I've been making them on hand file out of brass and then duplicating on a key duplicator of our own. But there were several pictures that came up. Here's the sources for a lot of them. This one I'll be using a lot later on. These are some that DocSimp was followed. They looked like they were scanned on a flatbed scanner and for the highest quality images. But some have leaked out. Like I think either this one or this one was the one that was in the Washington Post. And actually on the right was the one with Washington Post. So the keys pictures are out there. Now some people are saying, well, can I send this picture to some of these online key duplicators? Well, not exactly, because the online key duplicators more likely don't have the right blank. The blank is the uncut key. There's no bitting in it. It's just flat at that point. And they put the key cuts in it later on. Now, here's some patents for the different TSA keys. I haven't found patents for all of them. I'm using some of that information to figure out who originally created the standard and see if it gives me any information about the keys. Here's the designers of those particular keyways. And the keyways go TSA 001 through TSA 007. And if we add Safe Skies onto that, I suppose there's like 8 different keys that the TSA can use to open all its luggage. Now, functionality, those two types of TSA-approved luggage lock you're going to encounter. Some of them are what's called dual function locks. Essentially what you'll have is two ways of opening it. Like this particular one you see I'm holding it right now, it has a combination which the user is supposed to use. And I set that combination and I can open the lock and get into my luggage. By the way, I can also reset that little red flag if I open up with the combination. But it also has a key functionality. So, in theory, only TSAs can have that key, and you can use that to open the lock a slightly different way. So it's a dual action lock. And a lot are like this. But there's also ones that are more commonly master keyed, where there's two different keys that will open it. Now here's an example of that dual function lock I mentioned. So you end up turning this gate out of the way using a key, or you can use this dial, and this is like a Sesame style lock. There's ways of decoding I'll talk about later, and it'll allow this post to move up and out of the way of the gate. Another way of doing it is just the standard way of mastering any kind of pin tumbler lock, and that's where you have a little bitty wafer inside there, in between the driver pin and the key pin, and that makes two different levels at the shear line where you can end up turning the plug. The thing is, though, every time you add a little wafer, you make it easier to break the lock open, because now you added one more possible combination that could potentially turn it. So each time you do that, each time you add a wafer, I suppose you double the number of potential keys that could open it. I suppose if you had two wafers, you'd be quadrupling it, and so on and so forth. By the way, I got that artwork from Deviant Olive. Now, most TSA locks are not pin tumblers. I do have some that are pin tumbler, like this little master lock is a pin tumbler, but it still opens just fine. There's also ones that they use wafer locks in. A wafer lock doesn't use pin tumblers, but it has these wafers that fall down into a channel, and you can't actually turn the lock until those particular wafers are lifted out of the channel by the appropriate sized key, and then you can turn it. Now, a lot of these TSA locks that are wafered and use a master system have two different keyways. They'll have, well, here's a traditional looking wafer, and it might be inside of that keyway. This is a keyway that's a little bit different for 007, where there's two different keyways. The one on the left is the one that the user's key would be using, and the one on the right is the one that the TSA would be using. This purple is the shared common ground between them. And they would have a wafer of two different cutting levels. So two different keys would open it depending on which side of the lock you're going into. And here's an example of that. These ones, like this one is just a combination, but the TSA agent has the key for it, but the user does not have the key for it. This one, if you look down it, this one, the user has a key and the TSA agent has a key. And you may not be able to make it out in the picture quite so well, but you see on this side, the wafer has one level, and the other side a different level. And this one's really dramatic. You can see two different keyways. And here's some examples of the different locks that are out there. TSA 001, if anybody can find this, please get in code hold of me, because this is the only lock I don't have in my possession. I want to be able to create duplicate keys for it, but I'm thinking it may have been discontinued, because everybody who says they have one and where they got it, like, I walked into Walgreens and it was just there. And all the ones I've seen have been older locks, so I'm thinking people just stopped using the TSA 001 keyway, and you can't get it anymore. So if someone encounters it or has an old lock, let me know. I'm looking for a few of them so I can tear them down and duplicate the key. But I think the one for this is ILCO 1092VR key blank, but I'm not 100% sure. This one, the TSA 002, is probably the second most popular TSA luggage lock. You see it real commonly. This one I was holding up earlier is a TSA 002. A lot of luggage has TSA 002 built into it. Now, its particular blank, the 1611R, seemed to work really well in almost every TSA lock I encountered. Until at DerbyCon this weekend, I met up with Gillis and tried it in his luggage, and his was just a little bit off. His was a little bit too kind of the keyway. One of the problems with a lot of these TSA-approved locks, even if they made it perfectly to spec, it may be not as bad, even though it was master key. but a lot of them are so loose tolerances. Well, you saw how fast I break this thing open earlier, and they're just so, well, the tolerances are so loose, it's hard to say if you have a proper master key for all of them unless you get a huge collection of locks to test it on. Which is why I have that. I've been collecting for a bit. Actually, you all seen the funny expression on the TSA agent's faces. I was going through airport security a bit ago, and I had, not all that, but a good portion of that. I was going through, he looks at all my locks, and like, so you're a collector? Oh no, I'm testing the security of them. I'm trying to reverse engineer the keys. I should have got video of that. That would be awesome. But to give you an idea of how loose some tolerances are on this, and let's hope I don't have a complete demo fail. I mean, I got it locked right now. Take my word for it. You can sometimes just jiggle something in there and turn it open. And that is just the jiggler key, well, from Sparrow. They call it coffin keys. I'll talk a little bit more about them later on. I'm kind of a Sparrow fanboy. I like the stuff. But those are what the TSA 002 keyways look like. Now, considering what I'm projecting on, you may not be able to easily see it. But yeah, the key I was able to use to make a pretty damn close to master key for it was one for a gas cap. And that's a particular part number. I gave away, I think, almost 60 of them at DerbyCon. And I think I gave about 30 of the 005s away. I'm looking to duplicate more though. I'm giving them out like challenge coins. Here's the TSA 003. I own one. It's got this weird triangular keyway. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tension if you're going to try to pick it. I haven't made a key for this one yet, but I have seen people do 3D printed ones that did work. Last I checked Johnny's, it didn't work, and Dossman's version of the key didn't work. But with a little effort, it should be doable. I have picked one before, and I rarely ever see them in the wild. It's just not a very common one. I think I have a Briggs & Riley one. Is the ones I have, but not all Briggs & Riley use the 003. That weird triangular keyway is kind of, I haven't seen any blanks quite like that. Oh, the TSA 004 is kind of pathetic. I'm just trying to show you what the key is. You see that little hole in there? That is essentially for the key. The key is pretty much nothing but a bulbous screwdriver.
Oh, like a handcuff key?
Yeah, so actually, Devin Olive actually asked me, will a handcuff key work in that? I'm like, well, not quite. It's not quite small enough. But yeah, very close to a handcuff key. Actually, you want to see what it actually looks like. Actually, I wonder if I can get a video up real quick. Yeah, this might be a good idea. Alright. That is essentially the key. It's not like a mirror, it's kind of hard for me to control. So you just stick that in there, you turn it, you open it. It's really that simple. Now, these search alerts do have an extra feature on them though, where they pop up this little red flag if someone's gotten in. But my friend Chris Shistrom, and I've done this before, I don't know if I can do it live on camera or not, but he showed me a way where you could reach into, I don't think this one's going to be thin enough. You can actually reach in through the dials and reset that flag back so no one knows you got into the luggage, even if you use the appropriate key. But this pick is not quite thin enough to accomplish that task. So I'd have to get something a little bit thinner to do it. But I have done that before too, so if you can reset that one. I have seen other search alerts ones though, I haven't yet quite figured out how to reset the alert flag on. You can also sometimes pick it with a half diamond pick. And here's a TSA 005. It's a key blank. This is like the third most common. Its key blank is an M2 from Master Lock, or Ilco makes it as the 1092B. I hand filed one out and just grind them out of M2s now, and they seem to work fairly reliably. I'll explain about the whole hand grinding process here very shortly. Where did I sit? Oh, there it is. Yeah, hopefully this is the very first 005 I think I produced that worked, and I just did it kind of by eye as I was messing around with one of the cores. I'll explain how all that works in a bit. Now this is the only A TSA lock, I found it's not like so simple you can make it open. We've tried, I've tried, David All's tried, Dossman's tried, Cameron's tried. None of us have been able to pick the TSA 006. This is only on high-end luggage from Moa and Proteca as far as I can tell. And it's a double-sided dimple lock. The way a dimple lock works is it's still a pin tumbler lock, but instead of the bitting being on the edge of the key, it's on the sides of the key. And you gotta get those all leveled right. And you have to get the top ones and the bottom ones. And according to Cameron, there's spool pins in there. Spool pins are shaped like little spools. They lock up on that shear line, make things much more difficult. Deviant has no problem believing that. These were designed by Avis, and Avis generally makes very good locks. Now, it's still master keyed, and ultimately, we should be able to figure out a way to take one apart and do that, but I've only found one of these. I don't want to buy $600, $700 to $2,000 luggage to take this apart. So I found one on eBay for like, I don't know, 27 bucks in Europe and finally got it to me, but I only have one example of it. And if you actually want to see that one in action, this one, I'll look down the Keyway. I don't know if the lighting will be any better here. Probably not. That's the one to get. Unfortunately, it's only built into the luggage.
Yeah.
And the light's not going to be any good for this. I will hand it around, but please make sure this one gets back to me because that's the only sample I have. But you'll notice it has a dimple system, top and bottom, and none of us have been able to pick it. And there's some wording inside it that my coworker Doug Highwell, who's a better lock picker than I am, tried to get into it, also not having a lot of luck. He says there's some wording inside that's going to make it difficult. So none of us have been able to pick that one yet. Unfortunately, I've only seen it on Rimowa and Proteca luggage. You can't just get it as a padlock. Now, here's that dimple system I was talking about. You have that shear line I mentioned before, and it's still a pin tumbler lock, it's just the bitting is on the side. Now, this isn't the TSA 006 key, but it is an example of a dimple key. And they'll probably have some more downstairs, so you check out the Fool's booth. Now, this is my holy grail one. This is the 007. This is the one I want to get. I can't find a proper key blank for it. The TSA 007, I'm not sure why it became the one you see most often, but it is. Maybe the 007 sounded cooler or more secret for whatever reason. It's by far the most common. The the 1092 VR can somewhat work as a key blank for this, but there's an extra lip on it that you have to mill off, so it's not perfect and it's hard to lock into a key duplicator because the way a key duplicator works. And yes, I'm obsessive compulsive enough. When I started this project, I bought me a key cutter. That's a $315 one. It's meant for, like, you know, service vans that go out. And I didn't even know this was on there before. But yeah, you have to lock them in the vise, and then you go along this little reading piece of metal, and it grinds out just the right key. Hopefully. Now, since I couldn't find a proper blank for it, what I've been doing is those luggage keys from Embark at Target and Travel Smart Conair at Myers that you can file down if you find the right key to basically make the master key. So I've been buying those, but that makes the key blanks a little bit over $1 a pop, and I'm trying to find something cheaper so I can mass produce them. Here's what the Keyway looks like. That's more or less an idolized one. There's 4 keys that are similar to that, but they're all too big. I've not found anything quite small enough for that, other than grinding down that particular 1092 VR I mentioned before. But you know, there's different tolerances of 007s. Here's another one. Pops real easy. Here's one though. You see the double Keyway. Unfortunately, everything's black, kind of like black on black. So there's a lot of variants in TSA 007 Keyways from just looking down them. But the idealized one is just that shape. There's no TSA 007. Notice it didn't look like the first. And we'll cover a little bit about different ways in. Alright. As I mentioned before, making the keys was kind of a technical challenge for fun. And it kind of emphasizes how easy it is to actually bust through this luggage. Because some people don't believe that a lock is weak until you actually show them you can make the key for it. Because they think, well, lockpicking is a special skill. Only a few people can do that. Lockpicking is pretty easy, especially on TSA locks. You can get little 5-year-olds to make them open in seconds. But traditional lock picking, you just apply a little bit of tension. If it's a pin tumbler lock, you feel which one's binding against the side between the plug and the cylinder, and then just lift it. Or it's just raking like you see with that snake rake. Just go in and out, vary your angle. You'll simulate a lot of different key cuts, and eventually one will open. A lot of these not even pin tumbler, the wafer locks, which usually have weaker tolerances and are real easy to get to open up. Oh, again, all this is from Debbie and Olive. Another classic technique to get into various locks is bumping. This is not going to work on most TSA locks because a lot of TSA locks are wafer locks. You can't really bump a wafer lock because when you bump it, there's usually a channel at the top that you'll be bumping the wafers into, and you still can't turn it. Also, small keyways and other problems like that is going to occur. But get them to demonstrate bumping to you downstairs. It's kind of fun. The idea is you put a key in that's going to cut down to its lowest steps. You pull it out one notch. You smack it with a hammer while applying light tension, and you can get the entire cylinder to turn. Because what it does is it hits all those key pins, bounces them into the driver pins. Driver pins go above the shear line. Key pins fall down, and for a brief moment, the lock can be turned. TSA locks in general aren't prone to this particular vulnerability because most are not going to be pin tumbler. There's also attacks you can do where you essentially reach into the lock and pull aside the locking dog. The locking dog is the piece right here. It goes, or locking paws, what some people call it. It goes in the tongue and groove system. And you see, I have a pick reached into here. I can touch right there. And normally what happens is you turn this plug, this piece touches here and moves it aside so the shackle can come out. But you can reach into a pick on some of them and just push it aside. So I'm not sure which one is that I actually took apart to do that. So, hell, let's do some demo fails. I gotta find the right one. I think it may have been this one that I took apart to do that on. But should be able to reach through, grab the other side, and if you find it, be able to just, pull it aside and open the lock. I may have one in here that's simpler to do it on. Yeah, I'm not quite reaching it right now. Let me see if I see it in here.
I guess TSA didn't take too kindly taking your picks on the carrier.
I do all the time.
Really? They don't hassle you on that? Okay.
Yeah, I do. I take them on all the time.
They don't hassle you too terribly around on that? Or?
Nope.
Really?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the one that I've been doing this attack where you pull the locking dog aside, but it's going to be different for every one of them, and I'm not finding it quite. Oh, yeah, that's one I can do it on. That's a Samsonite. The one I have up there is not a Samsonite, but you get the idea. So going in, and that's a different lock, but it's similarly manufactured. Just move that locking dog aside, and you're in. And you can do that with some better locks. There's actually tools from Master Lock 003, a Master Lock number 3, which is the most common padlock in America probably, that you can do a similar thing with, but it takes 2 tools. By the way, this can't be done, by the way. I call it shiving. This can be done on some of the TSA locks. It can't be done on ones, though, that have like ball bearing systems. Like those some TSA locks that have ball bearing systems. Another thing people do to get into locks sometimes is shimming, where essentially that tongue and groove I showed you, you can put a thin piece of metal down along the shackle and push that aside. Most TSA locks are going to be too tiny for that to work, and for some, like the Master Lock 4630Q, they actually use a little ball bearing in it, so it's not possible to do that. Basically, until that cylinder's turned, that ball bearing's in the way of pulling out the shackle, and there's nowhere for anything to go. You can't shim it. Jigglers? Now, jigglers are pretty successful on a lot of TSA 007s. I was sitting on a plane here recently and messing around with my Sparrow's coffin keys. That's a set of jigglers they have for like very small pin tumbler and wafer locks. And I was popping through most of those really fast because the tolerances are loose. So that's a pretty easy attack as well. Another attack people classically use on TSA locks is decoding. Some I've seen it referred to as a sesame lock. The way it essentially functions is you have these little notches on the shackle. Well, everything's supposed to line up with these little turning dials and these gates. And when everything is lined up just right, you can pull this shackle out. And that's how one of those dial combination locks work. And these ones are designed in such a way that once you got it unlocked, you can turn it a certain way, push it aside, and reset it so the gates match up with a new combination. Basically, it disengages these little number dials from these gates. This might give you a better illustration when it's all assembled. But if you notice something about this picture, you can decode it because, and it's not coming through on that screen very well, there's a little notch here. You don't see the notch there. What you can do with these is you can take a very thin knife, go inside the dial, and feel for where there's a little inconsistency. Okay, there's inconsistency there. Let me go to the next one. Okay, no inconsistency, no inconsistency. Keep turning until you get all of them lined up, all the little inconsistencies. Then, once you do that, you just rotate all of them in one spot together until you figure out the combination. So basically, you take your combinations down from almost 1,000, or actually 1,000 to 10. And you can go through 10. Making keys, though, that was the challenge I really want to do. I just want to make a set of keys because some people don't think it's, a real problem until you can make keys. So I decided to make keys. Yes, the photos are out there, but you never really needed them. You can always just do it by taking apart locks, then filing and figuring out the proper height. And also, as I mentioned before, online duplicators aren't likely to be able to have the key blanks. I mean, they might have. Most of these online duplicators are going to be doing things like mass market stuff. So you might see them M2, maybe that. The M1, you might see Schlage and Quickset Keyways because they're mostly making people's house locks. Maybe car locks too. But the TSA keys, the blanks are a little weird. So they probably aren't going to have them anyway. So what I did to create my first TSA key is I got me a TSA 007 lock, particularly Brinks. But I've taken apart several others in a similar way, so I have multiple ones to test. I basically want to get different cores, so because the tolerances are so weird, you want a key that will work in as many 007s as you can. Like, I've made keys before that work in one 007, but not another. So you want several different cores to test with. But this Brinks is quite reliable, and I have the part number there. And I took it apart. And after I took it apart, I pulled out the cord that you see right there on the left. Now, it came with a key. Well, actually, it did not come with this key. It came with its own key that would use the channel on the left, the keyway on the left, to actually open the lock. I was interested in the keyway on the right. So I found some pin tumbler locks that Travel Century approved from Embark and also from Conair, and you see them right here. They were the right shape for the TSA 007 key. So I went ahead and took the blank you see on the right and filed it down to the one on the left, so the bedding would work. And the way I did that, oh, by the way, that's the packages for those types of locks and keys if you want to go find them at Myers and Target. Alright, here's the plug without any key in it. As you can see, here's that little channel I mentioned it would fall into, so you couldn't turn it. These have to be lifted up out of that channel for you to turn the key. Now here you see I've inserted the wrong key into the lock. Notice that it overlifts the wafers, and that's going to be locked in that top channel. So it's kind of like Goldilocks. You got to be just right. This one is a key that I filed close to perfect. And what I would do is I take a key blank that was close, put it in. Okay, that spot's high, that spot's just right. Okay, take it out. And I take some kind of Pippin file. The first ones I used a crappier file, but after Devin, Olive, and Lady Merlin heard I was doing this research, they decided to mail me a file, and they first told me what kind of file I needed. I think Doxson told me what file I needed. I looked it up online, and it's like $70 for a file? But it's a really nice file. I started using it now for some of my newer keys, but I used a little bit crappy one for my first ones. And you just put the key blank in, go, okay, that's the particular Tumbler, or in this case, wafer that's overlifted, pull it out, file it down a little bit more, and just do it very slowly. And eventually, you'll get one. Now, after that, what you can do is do a mass duplication, which is why I have that key duplicator down there. You lock your first key on the left, you lock your blank on the right, and you use the little guide so that you cut them out perfectly the same. Hopefully. Now, other people also, I actually started doing this by tearing apart locks and then filing down brass keys. A lot of people have been working on 3D printed ones. These people in particular, like I said, this is a shirt that Johnny X decided to come up with for DerbyCon. Or maybe some other conferences as well. Now, so far though, the 3D printed ones I don't have a whole lot of faith in. The size issues, because they just saw the pictures, they don't always have the right size. Like a lot of the 004s that people have been producing are just way too big. I've seen a lot of 007s that do work, and Johnny has a pretty much perfect 007 as of now. If you go down and check out the tool booth, they have some pretty workable 3D printed ones. But a bigger problem with the plastic ones is breakage. I mean, eventually, they're going to snap faster than brass is. And some people are looking into using these as the basis to then cast keys, but casting keys still is prohibitively expensive if you want to make a whole bunch of them. So I'm still looking for key blanks for the 007. And if you're interested in a repository where these guys are all working on this 3D printed key project, it's out here on GitHub. And I'll make these slides available when I post the talk. Now, a few just random things before I finish up the talk. Like I said, this is kind of preliminary work. I hope to have more done before ShmooCon and hopefully have a lot of keys to give to people. One thing about these keys, I found out what the key cut codes are for some of them. Because from the American Tourister locks I found at Walmart, they have this little number on them. And when I compared that number to the cuts in the key, it seems to match up. Because if you go to actual locksmith and you have the M2 and you say, oh yeah, the code for that key cut is 0362, they can reproduce from number. So that appears to be on these American Touristers. I'm not sure what bidding depth standard they're using, but it seems to be there. Now, if anybody can help me find this, this is the shape of the 007 Keyway as you're looking at the Keyway itself. Not the key, but the Keyway itself. If anybody help find that, I'd be interested. I had a bunch of these key blank directories I've been going through. That's how I found a lot of the key blanks for other types of TSA 007 lock. Other types of TSA locks. Still haven't found a good blank for 007. Oh, and there's also me trolling people. This is me asking Master Lock, hey, Master Lock US, I want to duplicate the key for my whatever luggage locks. I give them the model number. Which blank do I tell a locksmith to use? Thanks. To maintain integrity of the TSA oversight of the TSA acceptance system, dupe keys aren't available on TSA locks. Sorry. Not quite true, because I found stuff close enough and I'm able to duplicate. I just can't duplicate in mass on some of the varieties. But the 002, no problem. That particular one is a 007, which I'm still working on finding a good cheap blank for. If you're more interested in more information on this subject, I have a text article I wrote last month. Also, DocSim has a timeline of the research everybody's been doing on the TSA locks. It's kind of funny that that picture came out, I want to say last November. I started doing my thing this August, and now it's like blown up as far as the number of people trying to figure out how to recreate the entire TSA the TSA lock system. So far, as far as keys I've recreated, 004, 007, 005, and 002. Really though, the 007 and the 002 is the main ones you care about because that's the majority of what you're ever going to see out there. But here's a great place to a few good articles. Besides the timeline, there's also Mark Webber's work from back in 2004 when these locks first started popping up regularly. And he talks about how insecure they are as well. And final thing, this is an announcement, DerbyCon next year, which I believe is supposed to be September 28th to October 2nd, 2016. I'm not 100% sure on those dates yet, but get your tickets early if you can. And a few other great conferences to come visit. Louisville Infosec, which I think y'all already know about that one. SkyDogCon, that's down in Nashville, so about 3 hours drive from here. GurCon is up in Grand Rapids, which I think is about 5 or 6. Circle City Con's up in Indianapolis, that's about a 2-hour drive from here. And Show Me Con is about a 4 or 5 hour drive from here, and it's in St. Louis. All ones I'd highly recommend if you like the HackerCon scene. Finally, are there any questions? Look, you might have a question. Okay. Well, in that case, thank you very much for your time.